Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative Podcast. This is the podcast where we have digital discussions about everything. Depending on the guest, we have discussions about pop culture, social media, sports. But I'm really thrilled to be joined by an actor. Seen him in many things. He's on TV. He's in film. We're with Spencer Garrett. Spencer, welcome to Popternative.
How you doing, Peter? Good to see you, man. We just what a random chance encounter. We just found each other on Twitter, and 15 minutes later, here we are. I'm talking to Ottawa.
Impromptu podcast. Gotta love it.
I love it.
Well, let's get back right into it. A lot of people that know you know that you've done film and you've done television. I mean, I'm sure you enjoy doing both of it. But is there what is there one you prefer over the other, or do they kind of work as a tag team, like television and film?
I love it all. I love television. I love film. I love theater. Each different form of the medium, gives me a different experience. Obviously, theater is more interactive. You get to make mistakes and fail and succeed and laugh and cry on stage. Everything's different every night, from night to night. I love the experience of doing theater whenever I have the opportunity to do it. Movies are a much different process than television. Movies, sometimes you have the luxury of rehearsing and working on a character for a few weeks before you get to work. Mm-hmm. Most of the time with television, because I do so much guest work, from show to show, going from different episodes to different episodes. In any given month, I could go from, like last month, I went from Lethal Weapon to Code Black to The Magicians, 3 totally different characters. And, you get the job on a Monday and you're at work on Tuesday. So that you don't have the luxury of working on the character too much. So you're kind of thrown into the fire. But I like that. It's fun.
But I'm interested now. How are you able to balance that, and how are you able to prepare for that? I mean, I'm sure in a lot of situations your schedule is kind of hectic in terms of you wrap up one thing and then boom, another project.
I spend a lot of time listening to lines on a tape recorder in my car, driving around LA or driving around Vancouver or driving around Atlanta, wherever the work is. I have this handy little recorder, and I have my lines in my script on an thing called the rehearsal app. Mm-hmm. And I record my lines into the thing, and I try to make them seep into my brain as best as possible, because sometimes I found myself saying the words of one character on a different show. So it's sometimes it gets a little confusing, but it's a challenge and it's fun.
Based on what you've been saying, there's a question that I think would be really interesting to hear your answer to. Basically, I asked Robert Lieberman when I had him on the show. Robert Lieberman is a director. He's directed The Expanse. He's directed a lot of films, All I Want for Christmas, Mighty D3, Mighty Ducks. And I asked him, and I thought it was going to be hard for him to answer, but he said no. I was like, what is your favorite thing about directing? My question for you is there one thing that you could pinpoint in terms of your favorite thing about being an actor? Is there one element of it, or is there anything specifically you love the most about being an actor?
I know this sounds really general and it'll sound pretty lame. I love all of it, man. I love, been doing it for 25 years. I grew up, my grandparents were actors. My mom was an actor. My aunt and uncles were both actors. They were all in the theater. And so I grew up around an artistic community and around a family who were, in the arts and loved the arts. So when I decided to do it, it was, carrying on the family business, carrying on the family tradition. And one of my earliest experiences was being on a set in a movie that took place in the 1930s in Texas. And I was working with Robert Duvall, who was one of my acting heroes as a kid growing up, still is. And so having the experience of being on a set with one of your acting heroes and just absorbing everything around you and, getting to interact and act with somebody that you've admired so much. I still, 25 years in, I get to learn each time I work on the set. So I love everything about it, whether it's flying on a plane to Kuala Lumpur with Viola Davis to do a movie for Michael Mann, and spending 3 months in Southeast Asia. Sometimes you get really lucky. You get to have some really great experiences in my business. And I've been lucky enough to have had some great opportunities and had some great experiences working with some extraordinary people. So I love everything about it. I love the travel. I love being on the set. I love the hotels. I love working with other actors. I love the camaraderie of being on a set with other actors. Being in the middle of a big crazy production and trying to put something together and make it work, whether it's a tiny little indie film that's shot for no money or a big budget, mega budget thing like Black Hat for Michael Mann or Public Enemies. Each experience is different, but I learn from each experience, and I love each experience deeply every time I get a chance to work. I'm very lucky. I feel very blessed to have been able to work as much as I have.
You've been in many known films, many known television series. I mean, this is a two-part question. I mean, could you basically identify one, in your opinion, the role that you think is the most prominent or known of your entire career? And then the second one, it doesn't have to be a big or significant role, but could you narrow down to one of your favorite roles, Spencer, that you've ever been a part of, or a role that's kind of stays with you?
That's a tough one. That's a loaded one. I mean, Air Force One is kind of the movie that sort of put me on the movie map, if such a thing can be said. It's the first big budget Hollywood movie that I was lucky enough to have been a part of. And, I'm 25 years old and I'm working with Harrison Ford and Glenn Close and Gary Oldman. And I mean, it was a nice, small supporting role in a big blockbuster, crazy big Hollywood movie with Wolfgang Peterson. And it turned out to be one of the most successful and loved movies of all time. And it still plays all over the place. So
the line is like you can't escape that line.
Get off my plane. I mean, yeah. I've had that said to me a couple of times on airplanes, just for fun. People have turned to me, and in their best Harrison Ford and said, "Get off my plane." So it's fun to be a part of something like that. I mean, George of the Jungle. I mean, I've gotten to do so many fun things, but Air Force One is probably the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart because it's the one that kind of introduced me to the world of, being a part of Hollywood movies. And then lots of little indie films that have sort of flown under the radar that I've had a hand in putting together and producing and making on my own that are also very near and dear to my heart. I did a film that about 9 people saw called Below the Beltway a couple of years ago that I produced with Tate Donovan and Noah Wiley and Sarah Clark and Xander Berkeley, all names that maybe to your audience, you'd go, "Oh, that sounds familiar." But then if you look at their credits, they go, "Oh, Xander Berkeley from The Walking Dead," or Sarah Clark from 24, Tate Donovan, Noah Wiley from ER. I put a movie together with a bunch of my friends, and there's nothing better than doing a movie with all of your friends. So that one is very close to me. And then probably the one that I'm most proud of, I guess, would be Public Enemies, because that's kind of the movie that kind of changed my life in a lot of ways. It kind of changed my life. It sort of changed my career. Getting to work with Michael Mann, who was one of my cinema heroes, in a role that I didn't think I was going to get cast in, because I had tended to be cast as kind of the same thing for a lot of years, and a lot of my film and television roles, playing a lot of lawyers and smarmy congressmen and senators and kind of the same thing. And that movie kind of put me into a character actor realm that was something that I'd always aspired to, because the guys that I grew up admiring and loving and emulating were, the Gene Hackmans and Robert Duvalls and Al Pacinos and the character guys, the Chris Coopers and, people like that had these extraordinary long careers, as character men. And that's what I wanted to be. And I'm a working, grinding journeyman character actor.
You mentioned the films that you're most proud of. I mean, shifting gears a little bit to television, I mean, we said it before we started recording. I mean, it's unbelievable time now for television. And what I find it interesting is a little bit of a double-edged sword for actors, because I kind of think we're going to talk about there's so many shows out there, and there's so much opportunity for people to get their name out there. But at the same time, it maybe there's some saturation, maybe there's a lot of there's like more competition that emerges from that. What do you think about what do you think about that as a whole, the idea, like the double-edged sword aspect of it? More content, yet more kind of competition as well.
You said it yourself. I mean, there's a vast amount of content, and that creates a lot more competition for roles. But the work that's being done in television is so rich and colorful and varied and different than anything you see in the movies these days. It's really where the best films are being made. I mean, I'm obsessed with The Crown right now. I mean, it's like watching a gorgeous 14-hour movie.
Yeah.
You know, a show like Bosch that I was lucky enough to be a part of. Speaking of character actors, my old friend Titus Welliver of 30 years, a journeyman grinding character actor who gets to be number one on the call sheet for the first time and is carrying the show on his shoulders and, you know, doing an amazing role on a show that is just, you know, just, I think, groundbreaking for a cop show, for a genre cop show. So there's just, you know, you got shows like Bosch and The Crown and Game of Thrones and Boardwalk Empire.
The production aspect is unbelievable.
Unbelievable. You can do anything on television now, and you know, especially the you know, the streaming networks. I mean, Handmaid's Tale is a gorgeous production. So there's just really great stuff out there.
There's too many. There's so many of them, and like I mean, you mentioned The Crown and like Netflix, but like Ozark. I'm not sure if you saw that.
I haven't do it yet. I know, and Jason Bateman is an old friend, and he got nominated for a
fantastic, like absolutely fantastic.
It's on my queue, which gets longer by the day because there's so much stuff out there. So I mean, I haven't even seen half of the things I want to watch yet.
Yeah, and then you know, season 3 just wrapped up, and I mean, one of the sorry, no, Ozark. I was mentioning another show. Ozark season 1 it got renewed for season 2, but Narcos is another one I was gonna mention. Like, unbelievable television. Like, just like unbelievable. And I love it. And I love the content. And at the same time, though, it's kind of hard because, you know, they really have it down. Like, for example, I find like Stranger Things, right? A show with so much hype that, in my opinion, absolutely lived up to the hype.
I've heard season 2 is mind-blowing. I heard season 2 is incredible. I haven't seen season 2 yet. Loved season 1, ate it up. Haven't seen season 2 yet. I have to just like go to a desert island somewhere, just sit with a television in front of me and just watch all the shows that I want to watch. I'm in the middle of now. I'm in the the television academy as well, but now I'm in the motion picture academy. So I'm voting on all of the Oscar contenders. And in my other room, I've got a stack of movie screeners from all of the films that came out this year. I must have 60 movies to watch. So I got a lot of viewing to do. I'm just going to sit here on my couch.
Yeah, just watch. No, it's one of those things too. I mean, because we mentioned Insecure, but Neil Brown Jr., who's been on my show, he was on Insecure. He played Chad, and he's on SEAL Team right now, which is a huge show. And you're seeing television now is like, remember when they used to say, Spencer, like, oh, that specific movie changed his career. It like excelled his career. Television's doing that. Do you not agree that it wasn't like that a lot, like it used to be? Like that's a new shift, right?
I agree, absolutely. Television is now going to create movie stars, but I mean, television is probably creating more stars than anything, because you got so many exquisitely done productions, and the casting directors are doing an amazing job. They're finding these actors from all over the place and giving people really great opportunities to shine, and making stars out of them. So it's a great thing. A lot of good is coming out of it. It's as much saturation as there is. And sometimes it can be really overwhelming because there's just so damn much
Mm-hmm.
stuff to watch and to keep up with. I mentioned I was talking to this other podcast that I was doing earlier on Man Cave Chronicle. Somebody was talking about Lethal Weapon and the actor that's on Lethal Weapon, Clayne Crawford, who I was not aware of until I saw a show called Rectify on Netflix, which is an amazing show.
Great show.
And when people, nobody's heard of it, So sometimes shows can get lost in the
But
ether.
they will. There's nothing you could do about it. There's too many of them. Like it's like I mean there's gonna come a point where people are gonna be like, I hate to bring up Stranger Things all the time, but you know how many people never like Stranger Things was not on the radar for a lot of people. When season 1 came out, it was just like, oh yeah, Netflix new show, and people were like, wow, this is like some serious stuff. Another thing I wanted to ask you is we've had a lot of actors on the show, but I haven't had a chance to ask them, and I'm curious to see what you think about this. My background's in communications, my background's in digital media, branding, social media. So I'm all about the network. I'm about the communications. What is the network sphere like when you're working on shows like Project the Project in terms of actors networking with other actors? Does any of that ever happen, or is it just you guys go to work and you go to the next project? Like, is there kind of like a networking that happens?
For me, because I tend to go from project to project, as opposed to being it's been a while since I've been a regular on a series, but I know the whole social media thing in the last couple of years. Actors are required to be on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook to market yourself and network yourself and all of that. That's something that's kind of new to me. It's a different world we're living in the internet age, and so you're able to reach more people and access more eyeballs and get more viewers by tweeting and all of that. So a lot of actors that were probably reluctant to do that sort of thing before are now finding themselves on Twitter. And so Laura Dern is an old friend of mine. She wasn't on Twitter for a long time, and I noticed now recently she's on.
Big Little Lies, probably the greatest thing I've ever seen this year.
Oh, she's extraordinary.
Did you watch Big Little Lies yet?
Yes, I did. My friend Jeff Nordling plays her husband, Gordon Klein.
Coach O'Ryan from Mighty Ducks 3. Big hockey guy, Canada. Sorry, Coach O'Ryan. Oh, that's awesome.
I'm 10, and now she's in the new Star Wars, and so she's got like 65,000 followers on Twitter. Tomorrow it'll be 375,000. On Sunday it'll be 5 million. She's out there, plugging, like Star Wars needs help. Getting eyeballs, but so you're seeing a lot of people on social media that would normally be shy. It's not something that I'm particularly crazy about or comfortable with, but there's a little bit of oversharing that goes on in our society, in our culture. Maybe it's different in Canada, but at least down here, sometimes we tend to share a little too much. But some people are more comfortable with that than others, plugging their stuff, talking about themselves and and their projects. So
I think it's interesting too, because I think there's a lot of people that will admit it themselves that they want to plug them, they want to promote, and they want to get out there, but they don't necessarily know how to do it. This platform is there for them, and they kind of don't know the steps in terms of. The podcast realm is a brand new realm, Spencer, but it's a powerful platform for a lot of people to plug things. But a lot of people don't know about it.
But a lot of people, it's becoming more and more powerful by the week. And in terms of scripted narrative podcasts, there's Serial and S-Town and an extraordinary show called Homecoming with Catherine Keener and Oscar Isaac and Dave Cross, that midway through their first season, I think they got picked up by Amazon to be a scripted, television series with Julia Roberts in the Catherine Keener role. So, podcast reaches a wide audience, and it also sort of harkens back to the old days of like old time radio. If you listen to, if you haven't heard it yet already, go ahead and listen to Homecoming. It's as compelling as any great television show. Just orally, just sitting there listening in your car, listening on the internet, or at home listening to this great drama being played out, over the radio, or in this case, the internet. A show that I'm doing a podcast now called America 2.0 with Lawrence Fishburne and Ming Na and Jack Coleman and Octavia Spencer and Kate Walsh and Patrick Walsh, your fellow Canadian, or Patrick Adams.
Patrick Adams from Suits, Mike, yeah.
Is our lead, as well as me, and we just finished recording that, and that's going to be on February. America 2.0 is going to drop, and so that's my little contribution to narrative podcast dramas. We're going to see how that fares.
That's amazing. I can't wait. I can't wait for that. That sounds awesome.
America 2.0. It's people are going to really dig it. It's a really smart, funny political drama, very much in the vein of Aaron Sorkin of The West Wing. Really, really clever young writer who I did a table read about 8 months ago of a script of this pilot, and I just fell in love with the writing. And I went up to him afterwards, and like any actor, I said, "Listen, if anything goes on with this, keep me in mind. I'd love to be a part of it." And he and I stayed in touch. And about 6 months later, he called me and he said, "My agency is reluctant to pitch it out there because politics is radioactive right now with what's going on in our political system right now." And so a lot of networks were reluctant to touch it. And I said, "Why don't you turn it into a podcast?" So he rewrote it and turned it into a scripted drama. And we've got 8 episodes of this really beautifully written show with this extraordinary cast, with headed by Lawrence Fishburne, and Kate Walsh and Patrick Adams, and it's going to be a dynamite show. So that's my plug.
That's awesome. No, of course. Well,
my own show.
No, of course. I mean, we'll wrap up. But Spencer, thank you so much. This was awesome. I love having these conversations. I mean,
my pleasure.
Impromptu podcasts, like you gotta love it.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to plug? Where can people follow you on social media? What have you been up to recently, project-wise?
I'm on the Twitters. I'm at #1 Spencer Garrett, and on Instagram at Spencer Garrett 1. Mm-hmm. And I'm on there. I'm on there all the time. So jump on Twitter and ask me anything. And I'd love to see you on Instagram as well, and on Facebook as well. And Spencer Garrett. So come find me and follow me there, please. And I'd love to take on some new questions and love for people to see America 2.0 or to hear it when it comes out. Mm-hmm. And I've got an extraordinary new film coming out in the spring called The Public, directed by the great Emilio Estevez.
What's with all these mighty ducks? What are you doing with all these mighty ducks? Jeff Norden, what are you doing? I gotta go watch it now. You know that, right?
The first movie I did for Emilio was called Bobby, and one of the leads of that was Joshua Jackson. From
unbelievable.
The Mighty Ducks.
Because Robert Lieberman's coming on he came on my show, and he's plugging The Expanse, which is an unbelievable show that he got to direct. All I want to talk about is D3 Mighty Ducks. You know what I mean? So it's just he was laughing when we talked about it. It's amazing.
Well, keep your eyes open for The Public, directed by Emilio Estevez. Alec Baldwin, Jeffrey Wright, Jenna Malone, Taylor Schilling, Christian Slater.
Oh, what a cast.
Crazy cast. Crazy.
Cool.
It goes on and on and on. But, I mean, with just Jeffrey Wright, Alec Baldwin, Christian Slater alone, a beautiful cast, headed by Emilio Estevez, who's starring in it and also directed it. My third film with Emilio, and I'm very, very proud of that one, too. So keep your eyes out for that. It's already gotten 1 million views on Facebook, the trailer. So look for the trailer on Facebook and also on YouTube for The Public.
I will. Everyone will. I'll put all the info in the description as well. Well, Spencer, thank you so much, and we'll have to have you back on sometime.
Thank you, brother. Anytime. I'm glad we found each other on Twitter. And see, there you go. There's the magic of social media.
Absolutely. So, well, this has been...
Knock it again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been Popternative. If you liked this episode, you can catch previous episodes. You can just subscribe to us on YouTube, and you could go to popternative.com for a bunch of other content as well. And you can also subscribe on iTunes. Until next time, this is Spencer Garrett and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.